My name is Leslie Nugent, and I am the proud mom of a 23-year-old young man with Down syndrome, and I'm a minister at Wayzata Community Church in Minnesota. It's a United Church of Christ church. And so welcome, and good to be with you, and today is Wellness Saturday. I wanted to take a few minutes to consider what this pandemic might feel like if you are raising a child with a disability. How does that land differently for us? And I think it does, very differently. So in the Christian tradition, we have a prayer called the Serenity Prayer, and it goes like this: God, give me the patience to accept that which I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so my question right now is, what can we change? What do we have control over, and what don't we? And how can we stay sane in these days that we're navigating right now, knowing that? And so in my favorite book on raising a child with a disability, called Changed by a Child, written by Barbara Gill, she says that raising a child with a disability is much like living smack in the middle of New York City. And she says it's because there is so much amplification, right? Everything is louder and bigger and more. And she says that there's this thing called the DIF equation. And the DIF equation really kind of leads our life. And that means that D, duration, I, intensity, F, frequency, is different for us than it is for people raising neurotypical children, right? We have more duration, more intensity, more frequency. And then multiply it by the number of exceptional issues that we have, and we know we've got those, it can be a huge stressor. So think about it. I mean, typical kids, they have their tonsils out. Our kids, open heart surgery. Typical kids, one teacher in elementary school, we have a cast of thousands. I don't have to tell you about this because you guys live it. And I know that we metaphorically live smack in the middle of New York. And so, now we have the DIF of our lives coupled with what the world is going through, the DIF of the pandemic, and it's more than one person should have to bear. So what do we do with it? What do we do with it? Because COVID-19 is certainly a beast for the world, but man, for us, it's a monster. It's a monster. So I want to ask if anyone's ever heard of the Stockdale paradox. I hadn't heard of it, but I read about it in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And he coined this phrase as a way of navigating crises in our lives. And I think it's got an awful lot to teach us right now. This paradox was named after a man named James Stockdale. And he was a former vice presidential candidate, and he was also a POW in Vietnam. He was imprisoned in solitary confinement. He was left alone in his room, in his tiny little cell with lights on 24/7, and he was shackled to his bed when he slept, and torture was imminent. So you might ask, well, how did he get through this? How did he navigate that? And if you listen to an interview with Jim Collins, it's pretty eye-opening. Collins asks, so who didn't make it out of the prison camps in Vietnam? And Stockdale answered, oh, that's easy, the optimists. And Collins said, the optimists? I don't get it. And Stockdale said, yeah, the optimists. Because the optimists believed that they would be out by Christmas. And then when Christmas came and went, they were still there. And then they believed, oh, we'll be out by Easter. And Easter came and Easter went, and they were still there. And Thanksgiving came, and Christmas again. And Stockdale said, it was the optimists. They died because they died of a broken heart. The lesson here is that in order to survive, you got to hold realism and optimism at the same time. And that's a tension. And that is not an easy tension. You're always hoping for the best, but you're preparing for the worst in case it happens. Our kids have taught us about this paradox. And Viktor Frankl, you may have read his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor, a psychoanalyst. He calls this very thing tragic optimism. It's about holding optimism in the midst of tragedy. What a powerful idea. And he said it kept him alive in the concentration camps. I think there's something here for us, guys. We have a heavy load to carry on a good day. Then throw on a worldwide pandemic that has an epic tailspin in the world. And we've got to figure out how we protect ourselves. How we protect ourselves from all this new DIF coming at us. What can we change? What can we control? Because if we don't, we're going to hit burnout in a big, big way. We need to put our own oxygen mask on first. You know, the airplane tells us to do that when the oxygen goes down in the plane. That's because we can't do anything for anyone if we can't breathe. It's not selfish. It's the same thing here. We've got to figure out how we can hold the center. As all this contradictory news and politics is coming at us, we need to hold the center with realism and optimism and not get whiplashed on this roller coaster that's going on. Guys, we know this roller coaster oh so well. We live it every day. The white-knuckled turns and the big jaw-dropping drops. Holy cow, we know it. But let's not let it get the best of us. How we react to this will help us control the DIF in our lives. And that matters more than we could ever know. Be well. May it be so.